everybody. Welcome back. You want to see the Friday dance? Ooh, 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 ooh. Got any grapes? Yeah. Got any grapes? You want to know why I'm wearing that? You do? You want to know? Okay, I'll tell you. But first, I need some coffee. How are you today? Glad you're here. It's Friday. That was the Friday dance. I have a new trial to talk to you about today. Yes, you're not going to want to miss it. Okay. Got any grapes? Yes. Go to Crafts with Crashley. The link is down in the description. She sells release papers. What are release papers? They cover up parts of your diamond painting so you don't end up with a bunch of cat hair and dog hair all over it. These usually come with plastic on them, but I don't like the plastic. A lot of people don't. This is a custom one that I had done, but this is a release paper. Yeah, and it sticks to the canvas, and you can use them over and over again. Well, I have done some artwork for Crafts with Crashley, and she just released Got Any Grapes? It's a little duck that I drew. Anyway, check it out. Here it is right here, or one of these corners. Okay, so yesterday, I didn't have a good day yesterday. I didn't. I had a lot of pain, but never mind. Anyway, social media. Not allowed to talk about this on social media. I got a letter from the lawyer yesterday about the do's and the don'ts of a lawsuit. I mean, I was a lawyer. I know these things, but it's interesting that they put it all into a letter. I think that's cool. That's pretty cool. I hope everybody that they send this letter to takes the time to read it because, anyway, I digress. So, if yesterday I turned on YouTube, and my plan was just to catch up on the Rentala case because I've been covering the Cara Rentala case for the murder of her wife, Anna Marie. And it is going at a snail's pace. So I'm going to do a Saturday edition tomorrow and bring you up to speed where we're at in that case. They're off today. There's no court up in Massachusetts. I got it right. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Just say that 3 times fast. Anyway, I'll bring you up to speed tomorrow on that trial. But today I've got a new one for you. It is not a criminal trial. Although what these people did is criminal. Oh my God. This civil case is the least of their worries because this is what happened in this case is stunning to say the least. This is the Kowalskis versus Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital out of Pinellas County, St. Petersburg, Florida, the gift that keeps on giving. If you need entertainment, just find some news that comes out of Florida, right? So, and you might be familiar with this case if you watch the Netflix documentary, Take Care of Maya. This is the story of Maya Kowalski, her father Jack, her brother Kyle. All 3 of them are in the courtroom for the trial. At the end of this documentary, you see that they're getting ready for a trial, and then the trial gets continued. This was back in April of 2022. That trial gets continued, and Maya and Kyle are beside themselves. They're children. He's like 14 at that time. She's 16, and to say that they were disappointed that the trial got continued would be an understatement. But at that time that the trial was continued, and the reason it was continued because at that time the Second District Court of Appeals was considering whether or not the Kowalskis could sue the hospital for punitive damages. Well, that date came and went. They had to continue the trial. The Second District Court of Appeals finally ruled yes, they can go after Johns Hopkins for punitive damages, and I think they're going to get them. If I was on that jury, I'd be like, how much do you want? How much do you want? Let me just write a check. So this is a medical malpractice civil case. The standard is different. The jury in a criminal case has to decide, they have to make their decision beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes. And it has to be unanimous. Civil case too, it has to be unanimous, but it's only the greater weight of the evidence. So you got your 50-50 scale here. If it goes 51 to 49, plaintiff wins. Just the greater weight of the evidence. And there's a lot of evidence against John Hopkins. Yes. So let me tell you a little bit about the Kowalski family. Beata was mom. Jack is the father. Jack was a firefighter. He is now retired, and he stays home and takes care of his children. And Beata was born in communist Poland. She fled that country. She escaped when she was 16, and she had relatives over here in Chicago in the US. So she comes to the US and just fits in beautifully. She learns the language, she studies, she graduates from high school, she becomes a nurse, she gets her bachelor's degree, she gets her master's degree, she works at a cardiac catheterization lab at some prestigious, university hospital. At the time that this is all going on, by now she has met and married Jack. They've had two children. Maya was the oldest. uh, right now, Maya's 17 and her brother is 15. So they met and married up in Chicago. And then in 2005, he retired. And in 2014, they decided they would move their family to Florida. Why? Who knows? In any case, they moved to Florida. So I'm going to cover the opening statements here. Now, the attorney for the plaintiff got up. They each had 90 minutes to give their opening statements. And each side took all of that 90 minutes, with the exception of a very few minutes at the end. It was lengthy, I'm going to tell you. So the Kowalskis are suing John Hopkins for intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud. What else are they suing for? False imprisonment, battery. Yeah. They were also suing a doctor by the name of Sally Smith. She was at the time, I think what they called her was a child abuse, I don't know, a child abuse doctor. And it's not clear who she actually worked for, this doctor. She was assigned to John Hopkins. I think she worked for the Department of Children and Families, but she worked out of John Hopkins, and it was her job to investigate anytime there was a suspected medical child abuse, which is like this new term, medical child abuse, or Munchausen's by proxy, which we know is where mom will come in and she will give false statements to the medical providers or exaggerated symptoms. And you know it's all to draw attention to mom. Feel sorry for me, look how sick my child is. They're the ones that make their children sick. It's a very rare, it's not rare, I mean, there is a lot of it out there, but it's not as common as you would think. But it happens, and it's so sad when it happens. So in any case, the plaintiff is alleging that John Hopkins wrongly accused Maya's mother, Beata, and Jack of this medical child abuse. So sad. So the trouble for Maya began when she started having these respiratory symptoms, trouble breathing, and the doctors thought, well, she's probably got allergies. So they put her on steroids. Well, she became even worse off, started having this bad pain all over her body, this burning in her extremities, swelling. She would have these episodes of sweating. She'd have these lesions that would break out on her body. So they take her to the John Hopkins emergency room and they diagnose her as having a reaction to steroids. So this whole thing was progressing. And finally, Maya's mother hears from a colleague that there's a doctor in town that's treating their loved one for chronic regional pain syndrome, CRPS. Sounds like what this is. Maybe you should go see this Dr. Anthony Kirkpatrick. So they make an appointment. She goes over there and he looks at Maya and he says, yeah, I think this is what she has. So they don't give her the ketamine right away. This doctor's treatment is ketamine. He says it's safe, it's an effective treatment in the lower dosages, and it kind of helps your brain reset all those, neuroreceptors, pain receptors, helps everything reset. But before he puts he puts her on a course of physical therapy, and things are not getting any better. So he starts her on low dosages of this ketamine. Now, this is in September of 2015. And it's it's not having an effect on Maya. So he recommends that she be taken down to Mexico. There's a medical coma treatment that they're doing in Mexico, and it's not approved in the US. So they had to go to Mexico. The family packed up, they go to Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico, and Maya is seen by this doctor by the name of, I did get his name, or maybe I didn't. He's going to be testifying here. I didn't catch his name, but he will be testifying in this case. So this medical coma is where they put you in a coma, that you're on a respirator, and they're giving her high doses, like up to 50 times the normal dosage of a ketamine. And they're keeping her in this coma for 6 days. And mom, who was a nurse, is documenting everything from the first time she's ever taken to the emergency room all the way through all of this drama. Mom is taking meticulous notes of everything. And you could be critical of that, but she was a nurse. I might have done the same thing, especially when you don't know what's wrong with your child. You're in a foreign country, anyway, 6 days in this coma. Maya wakes up and she's better. Yeah. They put her in physical therapy. They bring her back home. They put her in physical therapy. She's making progress. She's not in as much pain. This is like the first thing that has worked for her. Her dystonia, she had dystonia where her feet go inward. Her feet are starting to straighten out, and everything's good, except that they're back with Dr. Kirkpatrick because they're back in Florida. That she's on the low dosages of ketamine just to maintain, and those dosages keep getting higher and higher, and they're not having an effect anymore, and her pain is starting to return. In January of 2016, the family decides, okay, we cannot afford this anymore. We can't afford Dr. Kirkpatrick anymore. So they find this Dr. Hannah, who took their insurance, but also would give them the ketamine. So she was doing well until October 7th of 2016, which happened to be the night Hurricane Matthew went through Florida. Now, I lived in Florida then, and I don't remember Hurricane. You get, unless it's a category 4, you don't get really excited about hurricanes in Florida because you hear about them so often that, the names don't really mean anything. So this one I didn't recognize. So Hurricane Matthew, October 7th, 2016, and this child is in severe pain, abdominal pain, which is a little different. So, so they take her to the Johns Hopkins emergency room. Now, the emergency workers, the doctors, describe Mom, Beata, as being controlling, belligerent, and demanding. She's trying to give them her daughter's history and tell them she's got chronic regional pain syndrome. This is how, this is what works. Give her some ketamine. And they're like, no, no. And I don't blame them. If this is not something you're comfortable with and you haven't been trained to do this, because, I'm kind of going outside the boundaries of the the opening statements, but if you're not comfortable with it and you don't have the right equipment to monitor the administration of ketamine to a child, I don't know that it would be something you would buy into. And I kind of don't blame them. So they're looking at all kinds of reasons why she might be having this abdominal pain. And at some point, the family is told, if you try to leave with her, we are going to call security. They're like, what? You know, so clearly mom pissed off the staff. That's probably how this all started. You know, here comes mom. She thinks she knows everything. She's going to tell us what to do. And you have to remember when this was, or it doesn't matter when this was. ER's, the emergency room system is broken. It is broken. It is always a zoo. There's never enough staff. You got people sitting out in the waiting room, in the hallways, and and doctors that don't even look at the patients sometimes. So this is a pediatric hospital, so you've probably got, in the middle of a hurricane, you've probably got a bunch of asthmatics sitting in there, and it's probably a crazy night. So a lot of hurricane injuries, nails and flying debris and tree limbs. And so I'm sure this was a very, very busy ER. And here comes mom. I need attention. So they come up with Munchausen's by proxy. Here's this controlling mother. She's trying to get pain medicine for her daughter that for a syndrome they can't even confirm that this child has, based on the medical records that were available to them. They don't have all of this child's medical records. So mom starts, they were recommending at one point. What they did was they called the state. They said, listen, here's what we got. And they describe what's happening to the state. So the state has a custody hearing, what they call a shelter hearing. And at this shelter hearing, I don't know what evidence was presented at this shelter hearing, but my understanding it's held in family court, and hearsay is allowed. You can tell the judge what you heard somebody say about what they heard somebody say. Hearsay upon hearsay. It just anything goes, because they're trying to find out what is in the best interest of this child, Maya Kowalski. So the judge orders that she be held in the state custody and that mom have no contact with this child. So when he announced that, mom passes out in the courtroom, and they have to bring in rescue and take her to the hospital. So she's evaluated by a psychiatrist who determines no, she's not suffering from from Munchausen's by proxy. She's suffering from, what do they call it? Hold on. An adjustment disorder. She's trying to adjust to her child's needs, and in any case, she's released, and she now she can only have phone contact, supervised phone contact with her daughter. Now dad can still go see her. So now tension is building up between mom and dad because they've got Maya at the hospital. Now the hospital is saying we didn't false imprison her. The judge ordered that she be sheltered at the hospital, but she was kept there by order of the judge. And apparently they're saying that the records were replete with statements that said she was ready for discharge pending approval by the court, or by DCF. So I think I mentioned that DCF was sued as well. They were involved in this lawsuit, as well as this Dr. Sally Smith. Dr. Sally Smith is this doctor that was assigned to St. John's Children's Hospital. And this is in Pinellas County, which is St. Petersburg, right next to Tampa. There's like one little bridge. Well, it's a big bridge. One big bridge away from Tampa. So this Sally Smith, she gets involved in any of the cases that involve custody by the state, or that there's suspicion of medical child abuse or Munchausen's by proxy. So she comes in, the family doesn't know who she is, and she, starts asking questions, and they're answering the questions, and she comes up with this Munchausen's by proxy, and she's sticking to it. That's her story. So she's being sued, DCF, and all children, or St. What do they call this? Children's Hospital. Anyway, St. John's Children's Hospital. So Sally Smith and DCF are no longer in the lawsuit. They have settled because this Sally Smith is a doozy. Like, because she is assigned to this hospital, they said at the time, I don't know if she still is. I think she's still assigned to that hospital, but they've changed her title. Her title used to be uh, the child abuse investigator, or anyway, she's a doctor. So she's involved with a lot of different cases where the state has taken away children unnecessarily. So I hope DCF gets a clue and gets rid of her, but who knows? In any case, mom is allowed to make phone calls, but she's limited as to what she can say to the child. So now this friction is happening between mom and dad, and he's saying, "Don't rock the boat," and she's saying, "I'm advocating for my child." So they're butting heads. He says, "If you keep doing this, then I'm not going to be allowed to see her. Stop doing this." And to the point where she's like now living in a different bedroom of the house. Maya Kowalski was there for 87 days, sheltering at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital. During that time, she was put in a surveillance room for a 42-hour period so they could see if she really could walk. They had a surveillance camera in there, and they watched her for 42 hours. And they put a bedside commode that was near her, and to see if she would, get herself to the bedside commode. She couldn't do it. She defecated on herself in the bed. Yeah. So, and she was subjected to the nurses and the doctors talking bad about her mom. They would do it in front of her, and she would hear what they were saying. She says that she was told by the doctors and the nurses that her family was crazy. There was also a social worker named Kathy that was very, very involved. And Kathy kept telling her, "I'm going to adopt you." So I want to talk about a little bit about this syndrome that she has. And when they bring her into the hospital, I will say that one of her diagnoses, what happens when you go into the hospitals, the doctors can put down a list of diagnoses that they're ruling out. Once they get all the tests back and the labs and the radiology and the consults, then they can maybe narrow it down to a one diagnosis or two. So in this case, chronic regional pain syndrome was part of her diagnosis. They put it in there as a rule out. They were going to see if they could rule it out, and that's why they had her in this surveillance room for 42 hours. Yeah. And the same social worker, Kathy, was involved when they wanted to take pictures of her one day because she had these marks on her, these red marks that were part of chronic regional pain syndrome. And so they actually made her, she didn't want to have it done. And they insisted, they held her down, stripped her, so where she was just had her little, bralette on and some panties, and they're photographing her. And it was extremely traumatic for this child. And as Kathy was the ringleader of that, yes, we've got to have photos. So pretty sad. So this chronic regional pain syndrome, we're going to hear in this trial a lot about a Budapest criteria. So criteria for this says that the symptoms of chronic regional pain syndrome are the persistent burning in the arms, legs, feet, hands, basically the extremities. But in Maya's case, it was kind of all over her whole body. They say the pain is probably the worst pain known to medical science. They have swelling, sweating. The pain can be mild to severe, and dramatic changes in their skin color and skin temperature. So she can go from being freezing cold 1 minute to, you know, sweating with taking off all her blankets and be hot the next. That's part of this pain syndrome. Dystonia, where the feet are turning in, that's part of this pain syndrome. Blurred vision, and something called allergenia, which means you're sensitive to touch. Like you're anticipating the pain. So if somebody tries to touch you, it's excruciating. Meanwhile, Maya's condition continues to go downhill. Her pain is not getting treated. And when you hear phone calls between Maya and her mom Beata, she's not allowed to say, did they give you anything for pain? She's not allowed to talk about that kind of stuff. If she starts to do that, go in that direction, whoever's supervising that phone call has to say, no, I think you need to redirect, or you need to talk about something else. So dad's staying quiet during this whole thing because he doesn't want to lose his privileges of going to see his daughter. And this creates this friction between Jack and Beata, to the point where Beata's sleeping in a different room of the house, and he gets upset with her when she's bringing up stuff on the phone with Maya, and he's telling her to knock it off because he's gonna lose privileges, and he wants to be able to be by his daughter's side. Now, after they get this order that she should be sheltered, she's still getting treatment. They decide the best thing to do, that what they did was they put her in called PICU. It's pediatric intensive care. They put her in the pediatric intensive care unit, and they're arranging for her to be transferred to another hospital called Nemours, where they can do physical therapy and orthopedic, no, occupational, physical therapy and occupational therapy. So they call over to Nemours, and they won't take her. Nemours says, no, we won't take her. And the parents had already said, no, we're not following that recommendation. But they said, what you could do is, we have this really good doctor, and he can take her as part of his outpatient program, and she'll get intensive physical therapy and intensive occupational therapy, but she won't be an inpatient. But the parents refused. They're like, nope, 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 nope. We're not going to do this. So because this is all adding up, this is all fodder for the family court judge to maintain this order of sheltering this child. So this continues, and in December of 2016, there's a status hearing where the family court judge refuses to drop the shelter order. He's continuing the no contact order. And at the end of it, he's basically saying everything's maintaining status quo. Parents, dad can go see her, mom cannot. So the mom says, well, because she was present at this hearing, Maya was, she says, can I give her a hug? And the judge says, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, this devastated mom, devastated her. She couldn't even hug her child. And they said after that, Beata just disconnected from everything. So by now, Maya has spent almost 3 months sheltering at this hospital. So now there's this January 7th comes, 2016, there's a birthday party. Jack and his son Kyle, they get ready for the party, and Beata says, I'm not going to go. I'm going to just stay here, and I'm too depressed. I don't want to be around other people. I'm just going to stay home. So when they get home, they don't see her anywhere, and they don't check her room. She has her own room. They don't check her. They figure she's probably sleeping. So later on that night, they're sitting there watching TV. Beata's brother comes over, and he's like, where's Beata? And they're like, she went to bed. She's already been. So he needed something out of the garage. So he goes out to the garage, and he starts screaming. And as it turns out, Beata had hung herself. So the plaintiff in this case is accusing John Hopkins of intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, false imprisonment, battery, because of the photographs they tried to get of this child. They held her down to take photographs that she did not want taken. They didn't get permission from the parents to take them. They just stripped her and started taking photographs. After Beata commits suicide, they allow the father to take the child up to Rhode Island for a second opinion. He goes up to a specialist named Dr. Chopra, who confirms that she does have CPRS, chronic regional pain syndrome. And so the hospital, just days after mom has committed suicide, releases her to go home and live with her father. She spent 87 days in the custody of the state, sheltering at Johns Hopkins, listening to all these providers saying, talk bad about her mom, you know, just horrendous for this, just tore this family apart, tore them apart. Yeah. Good thing she documented everything. She left 2 suicide notes. She figured the only way to get Maya out of this hospital was for her to kill herself. And she was not wrong, because once she did, they let her go home. So once Maya gets home, she begins her treatment again. She's intense physical therapy. She was allowed to go home, but the family court judge says she is not allowed to have any ketamine, no ketamine. So she starts an intensive physical therapy, and about 8 months after she starts, she's starting to, the dystonia is going away. She, the therapy's working. She also, a year after that, can walk. Now, she still suffers from chronic regional pain syndrome, but it waxes and wanes. It's one of those things where you can be in remission for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden something triggers it, and you have this intense pain. And she has to learn how to live with that. And she's gone back to school. She's getting ready to graduate high school. She's got a boyfriend. She's gorgeous. She's sitting, she is at the defense table. Behind her is her brother Kyle and her father Jack, because they're all 3 plaintiffs in this lawsuit, and they are asking for punitive damages. In other words, punishment for doing this. And here's where the fraud comes in. Even though they thought she had Munchausen's by proxy, they were billing, because they could get it for a higher rate, they were billing the insurance company to the tune of, I have the amount written down here. It's a lot. $536,000 they billed for chronic regional pain syndrome treatment during that 87 days that she didn't have. Yeah. Shame on you. Shame on you. So mom's gone. They'll never get her back. But hopefully this trial will go well, and some lessons will be learned. But this is Florida. Who knows? The craziest things happen in Florida, right? So if you want to go watch the Netflix thing, that'll give you a little bit more flavor of the background. You can hear Maya talking. You can see excerpts from her deposition taken during the course of this litigation. It's going to be a lengthy trial, a lot of medical providers. I think the witness list for the plaintiff is over 100 people. Some will not be on the stand long. Experts probably take a day and a half. Also a very expensive trial. Just the attorney's costs. They get 40%. Yeah. If the plaintiff is successful, he will get 40% of the recovery that's awarded to this family. My hope is that she does get a recovery, and they set up an annuity so that she can be taken care of for the rest of her life when she does have flare-ups of this CPRS. CRPS. You know what I'm trying to say. All right, guys, that's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed this new trial. There's no trial on Monday in this case. On Monday, I will let you know what happened today in court. So lots to get to. Yeah. All right. Have a great weekend. I will be live tonight, 6:30 Central, for our event, our diamond painting event. We're going to give away a couple of prizes. And then Sunday, I'll be live at 11. Same thing, some more event prizes. Yep. And don't forget, go look at the release papers from Crafts with Crashley. Got any grapes? Not this image here, but I painted a little duck and some grapes, and it's for sale now. So go look at my artwork. The link is down in the description. Also, a discount code if you decide you want to buy something. All right, guys.